My name is Caitríona Ní Threasaigh and I paint in oil on canvas and also watercolours, and I also make sculptures out of mixed media, so a lot of found objects, I could say. I've always been interested in creativity. I did a lot of arts and crafts growing up as a child in school, but it was a while before I actually found my proper artistic path, if you like. I was working in film, in costume, and I was working as a trainee. Then I moved on to assistant wardrobe. And wardrobe in film is not as creative as I thought it would be. It was more looking after the costumes rather than actually creating them themselves. I went on a holiday to India after working for a long time on a film, and this really is where things changed for me. I had spent 2 months abroad and I was on my way home. I was on a train coming up from Goa to Mumbai, and the train was coming into Mumbai, and I looked out the window and I saw this little boy running along the tracks beside us. And this little boy had a small little shirt on, small little shorts, no shoes, he looked about 8, but he was probably about 12. And he was running along, and I was curious as to what he was doing. And what he was doing was he was picking up all these newspapers that people were throwing out the window of the train. And what he was really doing was gathering all this so that he could make a few rupees to make a living. And I was really struck by the determination in his eyes, by the focus and what he was doing. He was fully committed to what he was doing in that moment. And it was like a mirror to me. In that moment, he was like a mirror asking me, was I doing the best I could do with my life? And the answer was no. And in that moment, I promised myself that I would go back and study art. And so I came back to Ireland and I applied to go to art college. And that was in 2000 when I went to art college. So since 2000, this new millennium, I have been really privileged to have the opportunity to follow my creative path. It has brought me through painting, through sculpture, into acting. I went to Canada and spent 6 weeks doing a clown course in Canada, which was riveting and so exciting. We did it was clown through mask, so we were making masks, and it's based on Native American Indian clown mixed with red-nosed European clown. And in Native American Indian clown, it's very important. The clown is as important as the shaman, and in terms of how their importance in society, how they help to ground people and help to create chaos, to rebalance things. And they have an expression there. They say, if you could look at yourself from every aspect at the same time, you would laugh at the beauty of your ridiculousness. And this phrase is one that goes through my acting work, but it also goes through very much my artwork as well. My artwork is very much about a stream of consciousness connecting with the line. Paul Klee defined drawing as taking a line for a walk, and for me I just found that riveting, the notion of taking a line for a walk. And so this is what I do with my work. I take a line for a walk and see where it goes. I never know before I start my paintings what is going to turn up on the canvas, and so for me it's an exciting journey that I go on with the characters that then appear through the work. The artists that inspire me most are artists that work from that organic place, I think. I think of Alice Marr, for example. Her work is very, to me, visceral and organic and needs to be made. Work that needs to be made, I find interesting. Dorothy Cross is another artist who I find so brave, and I remember actually she came and gave a talk when I was studying in NCAD in Dublin, and she said, if people have a problem with your work, it really is their problem and not yours. You need to make the work you need to make, and you need to not concern yourself with the other people's problems that they may have with your work. And I found that very liberating in many ways, because I think because when the work came to me first, I had a problem with it because I didn't understand it myself or didn't know where it was coming from, and I was almost afraid in some way, and it brought fear up for me. And so to hear someone else expressing that was very liberating for me. Mark Rothko is someone also, his work, I saw it in the Tate Modern the first time, I just sat and I cried. It's so, it just, again, so powerful and so visceral in its simplicity that it is it almost reflects you. You know, you are reflected onto the work and back to yourself, and there's something very powerful about that, and urgent and necessary. Again, the work is a necessary piece to make, you know. And the first time I saw a Vermeer, I just cried once again. Vermeer's work, like to actually see it in the flesh, is just extraordinary. I could even see him painting, you know, how the paint went so carefully onto the canvas. It was remarkable, and the care that he put on the you know, the girl that was writing the letter, and he's painting her, and he's connected with her, and he's creating this scene, this experience. Again, something that needs to be made and needs to be expressed in that way. There are so many artists, so many, but it is the artist that creates work that they feel has to come that I find so engaging. I think really the most important thing that the most important tip that I could give somebody who is starting off on their journey, their artistic journey, is to really not be afraid to listen within themselves as to what is the important thing they need to bring, and in what medium. You know, I've gone from costume making to painting to sculpture to acting to being one of the characters, to painting a character, to making a character. And it's so important when I'm going on this journey myself. I have had many doubts as to, should I be going more directly? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And all of those shoulds and shouldn'ts are so unhelpful if you're not listening to your own inner voice and what way you need to go, because there's a million ways of walking through a forest, and the most successful journey you will have is the one that is right for you. I had the great privilege of renting a wonderful house and studio down in Mayo back in 2006. It was a purpose-built space, and it gave me the opportunity. I spent 6 months there through the winter. People often go west in the summer, but I went in December until May, and then I spent the month of June then in Áras Éine in Inisheer, and they have a wonderful studio there. And then I went away and came back then to Mayo for another 6 months. What these wonderful studios made me realise is just to have that space is so, so important so that you can create your work. And so I have been very fortunate that I have a big enough garden to create, to build a studio in my own back garden. I have been very, very fortunate to have this. It's a triangular space, a triangular building, which I have in the triangle of my garden, and it is long enough to create long pieces. It's 24 foot long, but I only have 3 walls. So walking into it, it immediately gives you, it's a different place because it's got 3 walls. So yeah, it's you just walk in, and what's wonderful as well is you walk into your studio, you do your work, and then you walk out again and close the doors. You don't have to clean up every time after yourself. You know, I like to kind of leave things halfway so that when I come back in, I'm not starting from scratch. I've got something going on. And that's lovely to be able to have something going on the table there, and I've got a painting on the easel there, and I've got something else going on, so I can move around from piece to piece. Because my work, sometimes I will work on a piece and it'll go so far, and then I just need to be able to work on something else because I still want to keep working, but that piece needs a rest until I come up with more inspiration around it. So it's great to have, I will have a lot of different work on the go at the same time. And so I'll ballerina around from one piece to another, which is always a delight. My exhibition is called Dare to Roam, and it begins on the 7th of November until the 20th of November, and the opening is Friday the 11th of November from 7 to 9. When I'm making my art, I am listening deeply to what needs to be expressed in that moment, and to the best of my ability I follow that and honour that impulse that needs to be expressed. And so when people view my work, the great joy for me is when they feel moved to laugh, to cry, to be curious, to wonder about something that they feel connected to in the work. Not necessarily what I have in myself in that moment brought, but that they themselves feel connected somehow to the work for them, and that it moves them in some way. And that really is the most important thing. For me, I think that's what art is about. Thinking about a favourite piece is like almost saying, which one is your favourite child, you know? And everybody has a favourite child, but nobody likes to admit it. So if I had a gun to my head, maybe my favourite sculpture would be Maisie always danced to the beat of her own drum. And I just like her because she sits on top of a drum. The top of a drum is where she sits on top of, and there's little wheels underneath it so you can move it. And she is head down, she's completely oblivious to anybody who's looking at her, and she just wants to have her own way of moving. And to me, that is freedom, and I love the freedom that she has to do that, and I always think that I have that same freedom, but of course I'm conditioned like everybody else to be wanting to be liked and to fit in. So I love her for that. And in terms of a favourite painting, it's hard to say, and they're listening, so I better be careful.